Hello and welcome to the 6th episode in my long-running series, 100 Casts, in which I will be casting 100 games of League of Legends sent in to me by viewers and friends, and all of this will be done so that I can practice my shoutcasting ability. I will advise you that I am not the best at shoutcasting at this point, seeing as this is the 6th episode, and so I've only really shoutcasted 5 games up to now, and this will be my 6th. And so I do warn you that the cast will not be entirely perfect, and there will be flaws, and I would love it if you watched, pointed out the flaws, and let me know what I'm doing wrong and what I can do better so that I can get better at this, because this is all, the whole point of this series is for my own self-improvement. Anyways, thank you. If you'd like to know how you can get one of your replays featured on this series, just look in the description. There will be a set of instructions there telling you how to do that. And enjoy the video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with this then. On the blue side, we have a Morgana and Tristana down in the bot lane, going to be making up their bot lane duo comp. In the top lane, we have a Jax bringing teleport up there. That's become fairly common these days on the majority of top laners, and Jax having teleport is quite nice for the Jax because Jax scales very well into the late game, and the teleport allows him to basically guaranteed get all that farm that he needs to scale up to the point where he can just Jax all over people's faces. Rengar in the jungle, and Akali in the mid lane, though actually looking at it now, Akali is bringing Exhaust. Yes, Akali's still in the mid lane, she's just bringing Exhaust, which is a bit uncommon as far as Akalis go. She is bringing Exhaust as well as going fairly deep into the utility mastery tree, taking those biscuits, as the misfortune for purple team is a bit far up here in the mid lane, and takes a bunch of tower hits, then flashes over the wall away from the Jax, who drops a ward there. Misfortune at very low health in the enemy team's jungle at not even 2 minutes into the game, dropping a ward in the blue buff. Perhaps this is all just some sort of strange strat where she's trying to get vision on the enemy's blue buff, and she's back now between the enemy mid's first, the outer and second turret. Akali has found her though, and she's going to go down for first blood to the Akali. That's probably not good for purple team. Might be some silver drama or disputes going on purple team's side. Misfortune seeming a little bit salty there, just feeding herself to the enemy team. We'll see how the rest of this game goes. As Amumu, the jungler for the purple side, is choosing to start at his blue buff, which is unsurprising. Amumu's quite mana dependent and he's clear in the jungle. Katarina tanking a few auto attacks with Amumu there. Is Katarina the jungler? No, she is not. She brought Ignite here, not Smite. Amumu now having the jungle camp brought over to him is going to basically be forced to be forced by the leash there to do his own buff. I think he might be AFK, but Katarina brought it over to him. Katarina taking a few auto attacks there from the blue buff, though, does have to pop a health pot early, which is gonna hurt her in the lane. As Jax getting traded on by that Garen in the top lane. Garen-Jax is not a matchup that I know too well. Garen being a fairly unpopular champion, at least in the division that I play at. I do not know whether he is popular in this division. I do not play at this level too often, though I don't think he really is. I think his pick rate is fairly low pretty much across the board, though. Thinking about it, Garen could certainly win in that matchup since Jax's counter-strike is not going to work too well against Garen's spin-to-win ability, both the stun effect and the blocking auto-attack effect, since it won't block any auto-attack since it doesn't count as an auto-attack, and also the stun will not interrupt the spinning action, so Jax here can just Garen here can just spin like a top, and Jax really can't do anything about it, as we see Rengar invading the Amumu on his red buff. Very common to invade an Amumu if you're a stronger duelist, which pretty much everyone is, as Rengar flashes after the Amumu as he flashes away and sinks his daggers into the mummy's back, getting another kill on the board for purple team, who are 2-0 and 5k gold up at this point, though that changes almost as soon as I say it, as the support Ashe and AD carry Misfortune here are actually getting the advantage in the bot lane, and they flash forward under the tower and destroy the Tristana, who had taken quite a lot of harass before that. Two AD carries do have a lot of harass in the early game, since before items are built, they do both have the same, or approximately the same amount of base AD, so they both do a good amount of damage early in the game, especially with Ashe's passive. Jax there landing the counter-strike stun onto Garen. after leap striking onto him. Garen's flash forced away because Rengar is also up here in the top lane, who lands the bolas but cannot follow up after the Flash's own flash being down, of course, after invading the Amumu and taking that kill away from him. Certainly worth the flash, but Rengar now at the top lane burning the Garen's flash, being rather successful in his role as jungle, already counter-jungling the enemy Amumu and getting a kill there for himself, and then burning the flash off the top lane, as we see Akali making good use of that kill she got earlier, doing lots of damage to Katarina, but she goes under tower, takes a tower hit, gets ignited by the Katarina, who flashes and Shun Po's onto her, landing the Q and then proccing it with an auto attack and killing the Akali in a turn around right there in the mid lane. Akali had the lead for a little while because of that kill she had got earlier on the Misfortune, but does go down to the Katarina, getting a bit too cocky there and a bit too close to the enemy team's tower. Tristana being zoned out of CS now, though, by the Misfortune, who has 2 levels on her. Tristana did just level up, though, so that should alleviate some of the pressure down here in the bot lane for blue side, which will certainly be a good thing. Tristana is going to most likely scale better than the MF into late game, Tristana being quite a hard scaling carry, and Ashe not getting any of the farm down here in the bot lane because she's playing as support. Ashe is not going to scale all too well into the late game. So I believe towards the late game of this match, the Morgana and Tristana matchup is certainly going to do a bunch better, but we see in the top lane there, Garen and Jax having at it one more time. Garen landing his silence onto the Jax and then spinning like a top, hitting him over and over with the proc of that spinning blade. As in the mid lane, Katarina just taking some harass from the shrouded Akali, who still has yet to hit level 6. That's a very interesting matchup. I'd like to see it at level 6, as we see the interaction between the spinning blade and the counter-strike there in the top lane. It does indeed not get blocked by the counter-strike, and even the stun does not stop Garen's spin, because nothing can stop it when Garen tries to spin to win on your face. There is no avoiding the spinning. As we see more dueling happening here in the mid lane, Akali making good use of her Shroud there to win out the trade, not only with the extra defensive buffs that the Shroud provides, as well as popping in and out of invisibility. Akali does get level 6 before Katarina here, but might not realize that the enemy jungle is nearby, going in. Amumu comes out of the bush, gonna land the bandage toss onto Akali, activating his tears, and then spinning around in a circle, dealing a bunch of damage to the Akali, but Katarina a bit too low to follow up as we swap down to Rengar down at the bot lane, getting a kill onto the enemy Ashe, who has no mobility, nowhere to go right from that Rengar gank. As Katarina now has gotten level 6 and leaps onto the Akali, getting the kill with the help of Amumu there. Rengar jumping out of the bush onto the Misfortune, going to do a lot of damage to her. She gets bound, but she's under tower already, so I don't think Blue Team's going to be able to get this kill. No, they are not, but they do manage to push the MF out of lane. She has to back now. After 1 kill in the mid and 1 kill going to the bot, go to each team respectively. Purple team getting the kill in mid onto Akali, and blue team getting the kill in bot onto that support Ashe. Tristana leaping in to slow the Misfortune. Tristana's jump does in fact slow when it lands, as Morgana gets Morgana? What was I going with that? Morgana gets the kill onto Misfortune there with that last little cheeky auto attack sneaking in there. The aggressive Morgana support getting that kill instead of her AD carry Tristana, but a kill is a kill, and that puts blue team nearly back even in terms of gold, just 200 gold behind at the 7.5 minutes mark. This is still really anybody's game. None of the lanes are going particularly heavily in either direction. The blue team does have the better scaling late game comp in terms of the bot lane. However, they are behind on CS by a good 10 CS, the Tristana being forced back away from the creep wave quite often by the bot lane, by the large amount of poke which the MF and Ashe can put out in the bot lane. As Akali's in the Shroud again, making good use of that invisibility, but Katarina's ult affects targets even if they're invisible and nearby, which is a nice little bonus for Katarina there, as she does get the killing spree, killing the Akali in the mid lane, going 3-0 so far. Rengar popping his ult, jumping onto the Katarina, and just as she gets that killing spree, she then gets shut down immediately by the Rengar, who deals a whole bunch of damage all at once and takes her out pretty easily. The MF and Ashe now pushing in again onto the bot lane, doing quite a lot of damage to that tower, and quite a lot of damage to that Tristana too, who leaps away, flashing away from the Amumu's bandage toss. The Amumu flashes forward to try and catch up, but the Ashe is a bit quicker than the Mummy and manages to take that kill. The Mummy not even getting an assist for his time. Must be a little bit sad about that, but still the kill going down onto the Tristana, and the tower going down for purple side, getting a 1-0 tower advantage and just about 1,000 gold up on the board there. Rengar here in the top lane, throwing a bolus out at Garen, but Garen a bit too quick-footed to be caught by that. The Rengar actually leaping onto the ward out of the bush that Garen placed behind him, getting one of the hit points off that ward, but no more before it goes invisible. That was a pretty interesting little animation there. That was fun to watch, as we see Akali down here in the bottom half of the map, finding Amumu doing her team's Wraith camp. Gonna do a bunch of damage to the Amumu, but the Amumu has too many allies nearby for Akali to realistically chase that down, as Garen is in the top lane, spin to winning, and then dropping his giant sword out of the sky onto the Jax, who goes down to that combo, as Katarina gets yet another kill in the mid lane, jumping onto and ulting the Akali, who has no way to stop her ult, which really helps out the Katarina in that matchup. And Garen is split pushing the top as Purple Team is pushing down the mid lane. They now have a 2-0 advantage in terms of towers and a 3k gold lead, as Rengar comes into the mid lane to try and stop them from taking that inner mid turret, but Garen does manage to get the top turret while Rengar is chasing down the Ashe in this jungle, pops his ult to get the leap onto the Ashe, dealing a whole bunch of damage all at once. The Rengar does get another kill, puts himself onto a killing spree, being 3-0. Katarina goes down a bit too low health and a bit too close to that tower. She takes a bunch of damage from the Tristana, who then takes out the Misfortune, who attempts to dive her under tower on a bit too low health bar to be able to do that. And the Tristana does go down to Misfortune, but not before securing a double kill for herself, putting her at 4-3, which is certainly a nice spot to be sitting at as a hyper carry, 4-3 at the 10.5 minute mark into the game. The gold lead still in favor of Purple side, who has the 3-0 turret advantage, but Jax, Akali, and Morgana are pushing up the mid lane, so it looks like the turret advantage might not hold as steady as it is currently, as Jax and Akali are both, and Morgana are all three beating on that mid lane turret. I can't really see the health bar because of the overlay, but yes, it's quite low. Is Jax going to land that final auto onto it? No! Katarina gets 2 kills and Amumu gets 1, as 4 members of Purple Team show up in the mid lane to combat this push, and the tower survives with just about 100 hit points left. That's gotta sting for Blue Team and puts them even farther into the hole at a 4,000 gold lead deficit now, as Purple Team is pushing up onto the middle secondary turret, doing lots of damage. That Garen actually spinning on it. He might not realize that you can't spin on towers. It's one of the few things that is immune to Garen's spin, and one of the few things indeed is Garen's spin can get through pretty much anything. Invisibility, a stun, anything like that, any sort of CC. Amumu nearly going down, does in fact go down to the dot from Tristana, but Tristana herself getting jumped on by 4 members of Purple Team there in her own jungle, coming in a bit too ham, taking one out with her as she goes, but indeed going down as Purple Team is still pushing up this mid lane. I don't really think we're going to be able to get this inhibitor tower, though. It's a bit more difficult to push down than the outer turrets are. They probably should swap around to the bot, where Ashe has already pushed up the lane. Yes, Ashe is pinging to target onto that tower, wants her team to come down and help her. She's already got it below a half health, and if she brings some more teammates in, they can certainly get this another inner tower of them, which would put them at a 5-0 turret advantage, and quite a comfortable spot in terms of gold. They're already 5k up as Katarina pops the ult, goes down mid-ult, but does deal a whole bunch of damage to the Jax, who then gets taken out by the Garen. That is a double kill for Rengar, though, as he does take out the Ashe and the Katarina in that little brawl there. But we have Misfortune doing the dragon. She's doing it all alone, though, pinging for assistance from Garen. Garen going to be coming up the river to help her out. Might not be in time, though. She's taking a lot of damage from this dragon. Might see an execute pretty soon. Now Garen is here to tank it for her, spinning on the dragon. Dragons, unlike towers, are not, in fact, immune to spinning, and they do take a good amount of damage from the spin. Purple Team has slain the dragon, putting them at a comfortable gold lead of about 7,300, if my math is correct, which I believe it is. I did pass basic arithmetic. And the turret lead is 5-0 for Purple Team. Blue Team yet to get a turret onto the board for themselves, even despite a valiant effort to push up the mid lane. They nearly got the turret, but got forced away by 4 members of Purple Team coming in to defend in a timely manner, as Rengar is just doing his red buff here and Mumu doing his blue, and it looks like Purple Team is sending some men down to bottom to defend against the push that Tristana and Morgana have started down there. Tristana with that newly completed Infinity Edge is pushing the waves pretty fast. Flashes preemptively to avoid the Amumu bandage toss, and then throws out her own ult to knock the Amumu back. The Ashe arrow going a little bit wide, but Misfortune flashing forward and dropping her ult as the Amumu does the same. The combined AoE being enough to take out the Morgana and the Tristana. Rengar has found Ashe in the bush, but Ashe has some friends. Rengar didn't realize that Ashe had so many friends nearby, and Ashe manages to survive as Amumu and Misfortune come in to help her with her cat problem. Garen now in the top lane fighting off the Akali. This is really not much of a contest. The Garen being fairly fed himself at 2-0 and 2, having an Atma's Impaler as well as a Giant's Belt already, whereas the Akali is 1 and 5, not having too great of a game of it, only some Spell Vamp and cooldown reduction in her item build so far. As we've got a teleport from Jax coming into the inhibitor turret in bot lane, going to be holding that off from the purple team who are making a push for it. As Garen is split pushing the top lane, probably going to be going for that outer turret while his team distracts the enemy team in bot and mid, with Ashe pushing up the mid and the rest of the team down in bot, though Amumu is wandering up with Misfortune through the blue side jungle, going to be counter-jungling a bit, taking some of those jungle camps so that the blue side can't get them. Going to be a nice little bonus for them, as Katarina is solo split pushing down in the bot lane. The entire enemy team is nearby, though. She's probably in a bit of a dangerous situation, considering Shunpoing over the wall to that Tristana, but thinks better of it, doesn't know where the rest of the enemy team is. Probably would have been a bad idea if she had done it. Garen's split push, though, has reached the enemy outer turret in the top lane, and he's damaging that now, hitting it with a bunch of swords, but Katarina getting leapt on by the Akali and Tristana, as well as Morgana landing a binding there, blinded to the bush, so that was a Katarina killed there. I believe it was the Akali who got the kill there, bringing her back into this game a bit. She has Boots and a Will of the Ancients at this point. That's going to give her some more damage and a good amount of sustain in lane. Rengar and Tristana are going to be having to carry this blue team, though, into the late game. If they get there, if they can manage to reach the late game, they're certainly going to have a much easier time of it, with Jax, Tristana, and Akali all being very good late game carries, while Rengar in the late game can certainly be quite useful in his own right, being able to assassinate one of the two immobile carries on the side of purple team probably pretty quickly and easily, doing a lot of damage as most Rengars do. Rengar ulting now in the bush, leaping out of the bush onto the Amumu, does quite a burst of damage, but not enough to bring him down. Amumu being fairly tanky, forced to flash over the wall, using his W to heal himself, but Garen comes in, presses R, and gets the kill. And the kitty cat goes down despite flashing over the wall into the Wraith camp to try and escape. Garen doing quite a bit of damage to that Akali with his spin, but getting snared under the tower there by the Morgana, as Misfortune drops her ult into 3 members of the enemy team, dealing a good amount of damage, but not bringing any of them down. They're all below half at this point, though, and she forces the Akali back to base. Purple team going to be taking that man advantage on the map now to push out bot lane and top lane, with Katarina in the bot end. Garen going back to his beloved top lane to push that, as Amumu gets bound in the jungle and then slowed by the Rengar Bola Strike, but Morgana getting jumped on by the Katarina, who's going to take a lot of damage, and then Katarina nearly going down to the Rengar, but not quite enough damage quickly enough from the Rengar there, as Katarina gets herself a double kill with 2 assists from the Amumu there as well. So that is a lot more gold for the Katarina, who is already sitting pretty at the a 7 and 4 skill score before that, now up to a 9 and 4 with the death cap and the beginnings of a Zanya's being built, as well as a pair of brown boots. Jax jumping onto the Garen, who didn't realize he was sitting in a bush that was warded, as Akali leaps onto the Misfortune, drops the exhaust on her to mitigate her damage and slow her down, but didn't mitigate quite enough damage, and Misfortune gets to have a killing spree of her own, taking out that Akali and going 5 and 4 at this point, having built a ton of AD. Not very much attack speed, but she does have that steroid, so she doesn't quite need it, and she can always ult during a teamfight, the ult being unaffected by attack speed, only scaling with AD. As Rengar comes out of his ult, leaping on to the Misfortune in that bush there, and then switching targets halfway through with Katarina, the split focus from blue team not really serving them too well, as they get double killed by the Katarina there, putting her at a nice little neat 11 and 4 with that. Zonya's completed now. She's quite a menace on this Summoner's Rift, as the purple team is using their Misfortune and Katarina to push up the mid lane, going to be taking some more attacks onto that tower. No, they are not. The minions die far too quickly, but Tristana does get taken to half health by the auto attack and Q, of the Misfortune. Katarina leaps over the wall, presses W and R, and takes out 2 people, getting the Akali and Morgana, getting a double kill there, putting her at 13 and 4, but she gets shut down by the Rengar, who comes rushing out of base with home guard boots and gets the Q into her, getting the kill. Tristana there getting away with only 100 or so health left after getting ulted by the Misfortune. Sorry for the little lag spike there, I'm not quite sure what caused that. Maybe it was the explosion of the turret being a bit too grandiose and epic for my computer to handle while recording. But Garen does take out the secondary turret in top lane as Jax lands the stun on him, but Garen, being far too tanky to be taken out that quickly, takes barely any damage from the Jax's stun and a Rengar Q before just simply walking away, breaking the ranks as he does so with his spin. He spins again on the minions, going to keep split pushing that top lane, being a general nuisance and incredibly hard to deal with for blue team, who do not yet have the damage to be able to deal with him. No one on blue team having any armor or magic pen aside from those sword shoes on the Akali. In the mid lane, we see Tristana and Morgana pushing out that lane. The combination of the black pool and of Tristana's attack speed buff plus the explosions that occur whenever she kills a minion with an auto attack, meaning that she pushes the lane out very quickly. Though in the bot lane, we see Amumu being accosted by the Tristana. He bandage tosses onto her, dealing quite a bit of damage. He's built a good amount of AP already with the Leandries and the Spectral Wraith, but he is all alone versus an Akali and a Tristana, and he does go down. Takes the Tristana fairly low with him as a 3-on-1 happens in the jungle near the blue side red buff, as Katarina, taking the stroll a bit too far through the enemy jungle, does get caught by 3 of the enemy team. Ash forced to flash over the wall there as Rengar lands a bullet strike, keeps chasing after her with 5 stacks of ferocity. If he gets into this bush in range, yes he does, he lands the empowered bullet strike, snaring Ash in place, does a bunch of damage with his Q and W, but does go down to the Misfortune, who shows up to help out her Ash buddy from down in the bot lane. Misfortune getting a double kill for herself as Morgana had showed up to help out the Rengar. So all in all, it's a 1-for-2 trade, getting 2 kills over the purple team, and bringing that Misfortune up to being 7-4 and 11. She's becoming quite a menace now in her own right, with Misfortune and Katarina really carrying a lot of the weight for purple team. Though there's not a lot of weight to carry with Garen being 3-0 in the top lane. And here's Misfortune being jumped on by the Tristana and the Akali at the same time. She does get shut down. The kill going over to the Tristana, that could be quite bad for purple team, because Tristana, as I've mentioned, does scale very well into the late game, and you don't want to give her any free CS or shutdowns or anything like that, because she can come back to bite you in the rear if you let her farm and get gold without just going unchecked right there, without any checking happening. As Rengar's chasing down the Katarina in his jungle, Katarina does a whole burst of damage though to the Rengar, who goes down very quickly, not having any magic resist items. As Akali using her shroud before the Katarina comes out of her Zonias so that the Katarina cannot instantly burst her out, and then taking out the Katarina there with the help of the Jax, who is now here in the jungle to go after the Amumu, who's came to help his Katarina, but couldn't quite in time. The Amumu forced to flash away over the wall as Ash's arrow comes in to stun the Akali, who would have been chasing him. Thank you, support Ash, for saving your friendly jungler. As the Wraith camp, which had been left counter jungle by the Amumu, does get cleared out by the Jax and Tristana. They're all getting their own share of that Wraith camp. 4 gold for everybody as each person kills their own little Wraith. Amumu just taking his own red buff there, smiting it away as the blue side is farming their own jungle as well, taking out the wolf camp, and then Tristana leaping over the wall to go for that blue buff with Rengar. Probably going to be given over to Tristana, yes it is. The Rengar not getting that blue buff because Tristana can use it a bit better than he can, what with the mana costs that Tristana has and the mana costs that the Rengar does not have. He uses Ferocity instead of mana, for those of you not in the know, though I'm pretty sure most of you are going to be in the know if you're watching this video. As we see Tristana pushing up the mid lane, her auto attacks critting and exploding those minions over and over again, and purple team not really going about a concentrated push here, instead opting to go for the split push strategy again, with Garen going back to top lane, and Ash looks like she's heading towards bot, as Katarina and Misfortune both in the mid lane. Misfortune being leapt upon by the Rengar, who ulted in, but goes down incredibly quickly with the Katarina, who gets a double kill onto the Morgana and the Rengar, and essentially at the same time goes into her Zonias to avoid some damage from the Tristana, as Ash comes in, nearly saving the Katarina's life, but not having quite enough damage to burst out the Tristana before Tristana can land that last auto attack to kill off the Katarina, and then she goes down, Tristana does, to the Ashe afterwards, nearly taking Ashe out with her. Not quite, though, as the Ashe does escape, and we see Amumu and Garen, the two tankiest members, with the least amount of damage for towers, pushing up the mid lane, going to dive the Jax here. Garen ulting a little bit early, not quite getting the kill with it, but he does then spin to win afterwards, taking Jax out with his spinning sword, as he then silences the Rengar, who's coming up towards them to defend this tower, taking a lot of damage from the Garen, but avoiding the bandage toss from Amumu, not avoiding the ult, however. Nearly goes down, does in fact go down to this Garen, who is now unstoppable, being 5-0-2 with a Warmogs, Hex Drinker, and Atma's Impaler already completed. That's going to be a lot of damage coming from the combination of Warmogs and Atmas. That is a fun one. Not the most gold efficient, but certainly fun and very effective if you're ahead to build, especially on Garen, where health stacking can be quite effective actually with his W that just gives a flat reduction to damage. As we see Amumu trying to counter jungle the enemy team, but getting caught out, perhaps having walked over that pink ward which is in their jungle and not noticing it. As Katarina here, a bit close to the Morgana. Morgana not liking how close Katarina was as she tosses her Q, the bouncing blades, and then Shunpo's in, spins, and spins again with the W and the ult, and takes out the Morgana incredibly quickly, doing a whole bunch of burst damage, all in a short span of time, as Rengar is here down in the bot lane, popping his ult, gonna leap onto the Ashe, landing the Bola Strike for the slow, getting the auto attack reset on his Q, and then using his Ravenous Hydra to make a sort of makeshift reset as well, as Akali comes in, dashes to the Ashe, and finishes her off, getting the kill and reclaiming those double buffs that were lost earlier by blue team over to the Ashe in the duel between Tristana and Ashe. Tristana then getting DFG'd and leapt on by the Katarina, just instantly disappears, doesn't even have time to leap away or press R or any of the myriad ways in which Tristana can escape. She simply goes away, no longer part of this game for another 30 seconds or so until she respawns. Garen and Misfortune in the top lane, pushing in and onto the tower. Misfortune doing a whole bunch of damage to the Akali, who jumps onto her, is forced to flash away just to be sure that she doesn't die to the Akali before taking out the Akali herself, getting that kill, putting her at 8-6, as the Katarina in the mid lane breaks the tower. Zhonya's just as the tower falls, and Rengar gaining a little bit of confidence from the fact that Katarina seems afraid, sticks around long enough for Katarina to come out of her Zhonya's, get her cooldowns back, and leap onto the Rengar, killing him where he stands. As Purple Team is now pushing in onto both the top and middle inhibitor of Blue Team, this looks like it's probably going to be a victory for Purple Team fairly soon here, as Purple Team is pushing in, takes top and mid inhibitor. Tristana's doing the best she can to clear out these minions. That explosive shot really helping them out a lot, as Misfortune with the double buffs does take a tower hit, going pretty low. They might want to back away at this point. They are pinging onto the Baron. They're running towards it, probably going to be taking that Baron with the aid of Garen coming in from the base at full health. Rengar in his ult, home guarding forward, going to leap onto the Ashe with the help of Akali, both of them burning flash to do so. However, I'm not entirely sure if that was worth it just for the support Ashe, as Katarina leaps out of the bush that Morgana was about to face check, deals a ton of damage, and takes out the Morgana without even any assist from her team, just doing all of the burst herself, as Garen futilely spins the enemy team, getting away from that, but Jax actually split pushing in the bot lane, taking out the outer bot turret, finally putting a turret on the map for blue team, giving them 1 turret to 8, but purple team is just too far ahead at this point. They're nearly 20k gold up. Rengar is doing his best to bring that back towards his side, though, valiantly taking the dragon solo, as Akali and Tristana are left here to defend their Nexus turrets against the relentless push of Garen and Misfortune. Tristana nearly going down there to the combination of Garen and Misfortune, as Katarina leaps onto the Jax, DFGing him, and then leaping in with her EW, Q, and ult, in whatever order she pleases, really, and dealing enough damage to pretty much insta-burst the Jax. The Morgana nearly going down, getting ignited by the not the Morgana, the Misfortune nearly going down, getting ignited by the Morgana. She does go down eventually, but the Morgana herself goes down to the Garen, who comes in spinning and silencing, as the Amumu dives under the Nexus turrets, presses R, and stuns up the remaining 2 members of the enemy team, as Garen now, with a bunch of super minions, is going to be pushing in onto the Nexus turrets, spinning on the enemy minions to kill them and get his minions only focusing onto the turrets. Ashe in the bot lane going to be split pushing, though I don't really think it's necessary, as Garen and a bunch of minions are now on the enemy Nexus turrets. He's decided to fight it out with the Jax and Tristana. They're going to be taking a lot of damage. Pops his W to mitigate some of it, but not enough, as he does get shut down by the Jax, going 7-1-4, finally dying, as he does build a Sunfire Cape, Atma's Impaler, Warmogs, and I can't quite recall the name of the upgraded Hex Drinker, but it is the upgraded Hex Drinker, which is going to shield him a lot from that magic damage from the Akali, but I think it might be too late for Purple Team here, as they are defending in the bot lane, but their Nexus is going down. Both of the turrets are down, and there's huge waves of minions pouring in from top and mid, where Purple Team does have the inhibitors broken. Blue Team is doing their best to defend here. Rengar popping his ult, leaping onto the Katarina, doing a bunch of damage, forcing the Katarina to flash away, slowing her with the Boulder Strike as Akali leaps into Katarina, popping the Zhonya's to survive a little bit longer, pressing her ult, dealing tons of damage, not quite bringing anyone down, but Ashe is here now. Maybe Ashe can take someone with her. No, she does not. However, there's a teleport coming in from Garen, one of the minions near the Nexus, and Misfortune was there autoing it the whole time, and so it goes down. Purple Team claiming the victory here with about a 20,000 gold lead for themselves and a 10-1 lead in towers. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.